Have you ever wondered why some people find peace and freedom as they age, while others feel trapped in their relationships? The truth is, as you grow older, having a partner might not always be the blessing that people assume it is. In fact, for many, it can become a slow, silent poison, draining their energy, limiting their choices, and even making their later years more stressful than they need to be. If you've ever felt like maintaining a relationship at this stage of life takes more than it gives, you're not alone. In this video, we'll explore 5 key reasons why having a partner in old age can actually make life harder instead of easier. Here's the thing, understanding these reasons doesn't mean you should avoid companionship altogether. Instead, it's about being wise enough to see the full picture and making decisions that truly serve your well-being. Stay with me until the very end, because what we're going to discuss might just change the way you see relationships in your later years forever. Let's dive in. Number 1. The emotional burden of constant compromise. As you get older, your ability to tolerate unnecessary stress decreases. Yet, being in a relationship often requires constant compromise. When you're younger, it feels natural to adjust your habits, preferences, and even your goals for the sake of maintaining harmony. But as the years go by, you begin to realize that the sacrifices you make aren't always worth the peace you lose. Take Brian, for example. He's 76 years old and lives in Tucson, Arizona. He spent decades adjusting to his wife's needs, constantly putting his own desires on the back burner. Now, in his later years, he just wants to enjoy his mornings in peace, but his wife insists on having the television blaring the moment she wakes up. Small issues like these, over time, accumulate. What was once a loving partnership starts feeling more like a series of frustrating compromises. The reality is that, after a certain point in life, you should no longer feel obligated to accommodate every preference of another person at the cost of your own happiness. Many people in relationships find themselves stuck in emotional routines, where they are constantly managing someone else's feelings, reassuring, apologizing, adjusting. In your later years, the weight of these responsibilities can feel heavier than ever. Instead of feeling free to enjoy your days as you wish, you're still caught in cycles of making sure your partner is content, even if it means sacrificing your own peace. The harsh truth: a relationship that drains your emotional energy is no longer one that serves you. At this stage, peace of mind should be your top priority. Yet, many people stay in relationships out of habit, unaware of how much lighter life could be if they simply allowed themselves to step back from the burden of constant compromise. Number 2. The loss of true independence. One of the greatest freedoms in old age is the ability to finally live life on your own terms. After decades of responsibilities, raising children, working hard, maintaining relationships, you earn the right to do as you please. But being in a relationship often means that your choices are still tied to someone else's needs, habits, and expectations. Consider Leo, a 79-year-old man from Boise, Idaho. Leo spent most of his life as a dedicated husband, always putting his wife's preferences and needs before his own. When she passed away, he was faced with an eye-opening realization. He had never truly made decisions just for himself. His entire life had been structured around compromise. From where they lived to what they ate, to how they spent their free time, Leo had always adjusted for the sake of his partner. When he finally experienced true independence, he found a surprising joy in waking up without obligations, without a schedule dictated by someone else's needs. He could pick up a new hobby without having to consult anyone or travel whenever the mood struck. It was a sense of freedom he had unknowingly longed for his entire life. Many older couples struggle with this reality, even in happy relationships. You're expected to check in with each other, coordinate schedules, and adjust plans to accommodate another person. It's not about disliking your partner. It's simply about realizing how much of your autonomy disappears in a shared life. The mental independence that gradually erodes over time is often unnoticed until you've lived alone for a while. When you're truly alone, you reconnect with your own unfiltered thoughts and desires. You remember what it feels like to make decisions based solely on what makes you happy, not what maintains balance in a relationship. Independence isn't just about living alone. It's about having the freedom to move through life without unnecessary constraints. Number 3. The emotional exhaustion of constant compromise. At first, relationships feel like they bring comfort, support, and joy. But as you age, you might begin to realize that they also require something you may no longer have the energy for: constant compromise. It's a slow and subtle drain, something that might not seem obvious until you experience the alternative: peaceful solitude, where every decision is yours alone. Think about Robert, a 74-year-old man living in Cleveland, Ohio. He spent decades in a marriage, constantly making small sacrifices for his wife, watching movies he didn't enjoy, dining at restaurants he didn't like, adjusting his daily routine to fit hers. None of these sacrifices were huge on their own, but over time, they added up. When his wife passed, Robert expected to feel lonely. Instead, he felt a deep sense of relief. He could finally do what he wanted when he wanted, without considering how it would affect someone else. It wasn't that he didn't love his wife, it was simply that he had underestimated how exhausting it was to constantly compromise. When you're young, compromise is part of growth. It teaches patience, understanding, and teamwork. But in your later years, it becomes more of a burden. At a stage in life when you should be resting, reflecting, and fully enjoying your freedom, a relationship still demands adjustments. Even the simplest aspects of life, like deciding how to decorate the home or making medical decisions, require discussions, agreements, and sometimes disagreements. The emotional toll of this can be exhausting. The truth is that, as you get older, the peace that comes from making decisions without resistance or debate becomes one of the greatest luxuries in life. You no longer have to justify your choices, defend your preferences, or suppress small annoyances. The mental clarity that comes from simply being yourself, without filtering your thoughts for someone else's approval, is incredibly refreshing. Number 4. The burden of caretaking. When people think of long-term relationships in old age, they often imagine companionship, support, and love lasting through the final years of life. What they don't always consider is the overwhelming responsibility that comes with caring for a partner as their health begins to decline. Take James, for instance. At 77, he had been married for over 50 years. When his wife fell ill, he naturally stepped into the role of caretaker. At first, it was manageable, helping with small tasks, making sure she took her medications, providing emotional support. But as the months turned into years, his own health began to deteriorate. He wasn't sleeping well, he'd lost weight, and his stress levels were through the roof. He rarely had time to focus on himself. What started as an act of love turned into an overwhelming obligation that consumed his every moment. This is a reality for many elderly couples. When one partner becomes sick, the other often takes on the full-time responsibility of caregiving. While this may seem noble, the truth is that it can be devastating to one's own well-being. Studies show that caregivers, particularly elderly ones, often experience higher rates of depression, anxiety, and physical illness due to the stress of tending to another person's needs. It's a role that leaves little room for personal freedom. And the sad irony is that by the time one partner passes away, the other is often in worse health than they would have been if they had remained single. Even when both partners are healthy, the mental strain of worrying about each other's health, making sure the other eats well, attends medical appointments, and stays active, can be mentally exhausting. Number 5. The financial and emotional strain of late-life partnerships. Many people assume that having a partner in old age brings comfort and security. But what they fail to realize is that it can also bring immense financial and emotional strain. The later years of life should be about peace, but for many in relationships, they find themselves dealing with shared expenses, medical bills, and even disputes over money. Take Robert, 80, from Denver, Colorado. Robert had been widowed for over a decade and had lived comfortably on his savings and pension. He spent his time doing things he loved. But when he entered a new relationship in his mid-70s, things quickly changed. His new partner had financial struggles of her own, and suddenly, Robert found himself paying for more than he expected. Shared living expenses, medical costs, and even helping her adult children with their problems became a financial burden he hadn't anticipated. What started as companionship quickly turned into an unspoken financial obligation. Before he knew it, Robert was dipping into his savings just to maintain the relationship. This is common for many seniors who enter relationships later in life, where financial security becomes intertwined with another person's circumstances. The financial strain isn't just about money, it's about control, independence, and fairness. Arguments over spending habits, inheritances, or medical expenses can lead to deep resentment. Some seniors find themselves trapped in relationships, unable to leave due to financial dependence or fear of being alone. On the other hand, seniors who remain single often report feeling more in control of their finances. They can spend money on their own terms, save without guilt, and make decisions that serve their best interests. As you journey through life, the choices you make in your later years become more important than ever. While many assume that having a partner is a necessity, the reality is that for some, it brings more stress than joy. Aging should be about freedom, the freedom to make your own decisions, to live without unnecessary burdens, and to prioritize your own well-being. Take a moment to reflect on your own life. Are you living in a way that truly serves your happiness? Are you maintaining relationships because they genuinely bring you joy, or are you holding on out of habit, fear, or obligation? Everyone's situation is different, but one thing is certain: your later years should be a time of peace, not unnecessary hardship. Whether you choose to be with someone or remain independent, make sure it's because it genuinely enhances your life. Aging isn't about following societal expectations. It's about making the smartest decisions for yourself. Thank you for joining us today. We'd love to hear your thoughts. Please leave a comment below and share one thing you learned and how you plan to use it in your life. Your feedback means the world to us, and reading your comments inspires us to continue creating content that motivates and informs. If you enjoyed this video, please like, subscribe, and share it with others who might benefit. Thanks for watching, and we look forward to seeing you in the next video.